Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Chiefskate, and we are back with another edition of the Golden Age, our Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report series. This is Battle Report number 42. It is a 2,000 point battle that is fought between my friend Lady Domina as well as myself. My friend Lady Domina is bringing House Daechir, the Golden Reavers of Skyros, a 2,000 point Dark Elf army, versus my Feldhold Nations, my 2,000 point Dwarf army. So we're running this one at a little bit of a smaller point allowance. My friend Lady Domina wanted to play 2,000 points, so I was more than happy to oblige her in this video report. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what each of the armies is bringing, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Valor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Alright, so now it's time to talk about the scenario. The scenario we're playing is Battle Line, which is your most standard game of Warhammer there is. Standard deployment, standard victory conditions as always. We're playing on a 4x6 table, as you can see in this photo. So because of that, it's just a pretty simple, straight down, good old-fashioned slugfest. And with that, that takes us directly to the battle plan. So as you can see, this is an overhead shot of the entire battlefield. My friend Lady Domina is deployed on the near side of the table, and I am deployed on the far side of the table. So as you can see in this photo, we have lots of forest spread throughout. We also have the tower, which is located in the middle of the battlefield. We also have the King in Yellow Shrine located on the right-hand side. And like I said before, and I like the same thing I always say with my dwarf armies, even at 2,000 points, I am playing a dwarf gun line list. It's very, very heavy in terms of war machines as well as missile choices, so that my plan here is to actually just whittle down my opponent. She is playing Dark Elves, and Dark Elves are toughness 3 standard, so they'll be pretty easy to kill. The thing about Dark Elves, though, is that even though they're like really weak and vulnerable, they pack a punch when they can't catch up to you. So because of that, it kind of behooves me to destroy this army before it engages me in close combat. And especially since this 2,000 point list is our monster mash list that you've seen on our channel before. She has 3 monsters in this list, even at 2,000 points, so it's pretty dangerous. So what my plan is, of course, is to stay exactly where I'm located at, have my opponent march across the battlefield and whittle her down before she engages me in close combat. Hopefully I can kill her monsters before they engage me in close combat, because those monsters are kind of dangerous at the same time. However, I do have to be afraid of using this tactic that I have, because Lady Domina is playing Dark Elves, and Dark Elves are a really shooty army as well. She has a unit of 20 Dark Shards. Those guys can pump out 40 shots with armor-piercing strength 3 hits, and that is pretty terrifying. I don't care who you are. Being shot at 40 times with something is never a joy. Not to mention she also has 2 Reaper bolt throwers, so I have to worry about that as well. So we'll see how that tactic works out, but so far it's been working pretty well for me, and so I'm looking forward to using it again. So up next we have deployment for the Dark Elves. Starting on the left hand side, Lady Domina has put her 2 Storms of Cost. Those are her 2 Reaper bolt throwers. They're located on the top of that hill down the left hand side. One's on top of the hill, so it has a good range of fire directly at my units, while the other one's on the ground level, so she can sweep across my left hand flank. Also on the right hand side, she has her Morning Dawn, which is a huge unit of 20 Dark Shards. Those guys have full command, shields, as well as repeater crossbows. That unit's also equipped with the Banner of Eternal Flame, which really isn't going to do much for her on this one, because I don't have any cavalry choices and I have nothing that's flammable, but we play an all-comers list, so it kind of makes sense why she has that in her unit. And that makes up Lady Domina's left-hand flank. For her center of her army, she has a huge unit of Dread Spears. That is the Sea Stone Sorrows. It is a unit of 38 Dread Spears of full command. Located in that unit is Sister Sinner, the Oracle of Kos. That's her level 4 Supreme Sorceress with the Lore of Dark Magic. She has a level 4 Lore of Dark Magic on that one. She also has the Sacrificial Dagger as well. And then right next to that unit as well, we have Captain Lodi Daechir, the Golden Sun. He is a master who's also the Battle Standard Bearer, who's armed with a halberd, heavy armor, Sea Dragon Cloak, and shield. And he's also carrying the Crown of Command, so that unit is both stubborn as well as pretty strong to take up against. Right here on the right hand side is where Lady Dominus deploys most of her monsters. Up in the front on the left hand side, that is Rathrek the Maw, that is a Charybdis, followed by on the right hand side Virasil the Broken, her War Hydra, who's got fiery breath, and then right behind them is Lord Rakarth. Beast Lord Rakarth of Karan Kar. He is, it's quite a mouthful. He is a beast master who's on top of a manticore. The manticore has Ironheart skin upgrade as well as Blind Fury upgrade. The character is riding him also is the general of the army. He's got a Sea Dragon cloak. He is also carrying a Chill Blade, a armor of Fortune, so because he's got a 5-up ward save, and also the other Trickster shard, which isn't really going to do much for him because I don't have any ward saves in my army. But that Chill Blade is kind of dangerous because it automatically wounds. And that makes up Lady Domina's center of her army. And all the way on the far right hand side, right next to that woods, is a unit of Doomfire Warlocks. Those are the Shacklemore Seers. Lady Domina has already deployed them with Vanguard rules right behind that forest, that way she can get closer to my right hand flank. And that pretty much makes up Lady Domina's army for this one. And located on the far side of the table is my army. As you can see, it's all taken together in one shot. Now, this one is a little bit different for me for a couple of reasons. One, I'm playing at 2,000 points. I've only done that only once before. And the second reason why this is different for me is because usually I go for a denied flank deployment with this army. I usually bump up against one of the table edges, either the left or the right hand side, so that way I'm fully protected by one of my flanks. So being deployed in the middle of the table is a new experience for me for this army, and the reason why I've done that is because there's the hill that's located right in the middle of my deployment area. I decided to put my war machines up on the hill. There's a lot of sight blockers in this battlefield, a lot of forests and hills and terrain and stuff that's going to block my line of sights. So that's why I put them on the top of the hill, so that way my war machines have a better chance of shooting at things as well. And same thing with my units, because on the high ground, if I decide to countercharge, I can get a +1 bonus for charging downhill, which can make or break all the difference when it comes to fighting against Dark Elves. So on the left-hand side, I have Clan Izmir, the Vengeful Ones. That is my unit of 18 Quarrelers with heavy weapons, with great weapons as well as heavy armor. They also have Dwarf Crossbows. They also have full command as well. In the center is my Clan Roadsulker, the Cursed Company. That's a unit of 37 Dwarf Warriors with hand weapons and shields, heavy armor as well, full command. In that unit, I have Ragnar the Spellbreaker on the left-hand side. That's my Rune Smith, who's equipped with a great weapon, shield, as well as Gromrel armor. He's got 1 rune of Spellbreaking. In the middle is Lord Ivar Bodison, the Lord of Lost Holds. He's my Dwarf Lord who's mounted on shield bearers. He has 2 runes of iron as well as a rune of fortitude. He's also got a great weapon and the rune of parrying on his hand weapon. And on the right hand side I have Yorick Shadow Shield, my Battle Standard Bearer Thane, and he's carrying the Master Rune of Vyala on this one, so that we get bonuses for dispels. He's also carrying a great weapon, heavy armor, Gromrel armor, as well as shield. He's also doesn't have an Oathstone this time because I just didn't have the points for it. And on the far right hand side, that is Clan Helheim, the Fallen of the Dragonbacks. It is a unit of 17 Thunderers armed with hand weapon and shield and heavy armor. And that unit is Grim Borlaugson, who is also my engineer for my unit. And on the back there, I have my 3 war machines. I have the Remember on the left hand side. That's my Grudge Thor with a rune of penetrating. In the middle is the Sorrows of Eld, which is my cannon, who's equipped with a rune of forging as well as a rune of burning. And on the right hand side is my Decemberist of Winter Past, which is my organ gun with rune of accuracy on it. And that pretty much makes up my deployment on this one. Alright, so that takes us to the top of turn number 1, and my friend Lady Domina wins the initiative on this one. So because of that, she decides to move up across the battlefield as quickly as she possibly can. She's a pretty smart opponent. She realizes that if she dallies along the battlefield, I'm just going to shoot her to pieces. So the first thing she does, she actually marches up her Shacklemore Seers to the right-hand side of my flank, which is pretty good for her because it's unguarded and I won't be able to turn to face her without using my war machines in order to do that. At the same time, she also march flies Beast Lord Karth right behind that forest on the right hand side, followed by his Reavers of the Broken. They take cover behind that forest, that way I can't take him out with some war machines. And at the same time, she also moves up Rathrek the Maul right next to that tower, so that way he doesn't get shot with war machines as well. She also marches up her Sea Stone Sorrows, moving them up 10 inches from the main battle line, so that way they can start making their way towards my main battle line. And then on her Morning Dawn, she moves about 5 inches, so that way they can open fire and get within range of their repeater crossbows. And that pretty much makes the movement for Lady Domina. Here's a close-up of her infantry forces on the left-hand side, as well as Rathrek the Maul moving up in order to get within charge range towards my main battle lines, and also to make sure that her Morning Dawn are within range with their repeater crossbows. And here's a close-up of Lady Domina's forces on the right-hand side, trying to attack me on the right-hand flank. Now you can see the Shackle Seers at the top of the screen, with Virzil the Broken as well as Beast Lord Karth making their way to the right-hand flank as well. Now during the magic phase, she was unable to cast any of her spells really. What she tried to do, she only had 4 dice that she rolled up for the power dice, and she kind of debated back and forth about sacrificing some of her spearmen, but she decided not to because she's kind of, happy with the dice that she had. She took all 4 of her d6 and she rolled to cast off the large version of what's it called, Soul Blight, which is the spell that weakens your toughness, and she tries to cast that onto my entire army because they're within 12 inches of those guys. Unfortunately for her though, I was able to dispel it with the Master Rune of Ayala, so because of that, not much really came of it for the magic phase. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. During the shooting phase, she does try to shoot at my war machines with her bolt thrower. She opens up with her Storms of Kos on both my organ actually, concentrated the single shot version on the December's Winter's Pass. Unfortunately for her though, she wasn't able to secure the hits because of that her shots kind of missed. However, she did open up with the Morning Dawn and 40 shots of Strength 3 armor piercing crossbows hitting my clan Izmir. And as you can see in this photo, by the time it was all said and done, I lost 7 crossbowmen, which was absolutely atrocious. Luckily for me though, I managed to pass my panic check. The first time I rolled it, I actually failed it, but I managed to secure it with my reroll from my standing ground ability from my battle standard bearer. So that part was really important as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 1 for Lady Domina. There is no close combat, so we go to the bottom of the turn for the Dwarves. So on the bottom of the turn for the Dwarves for the move phase, as you can see, and as you can probably predict, I didn't move at all. There's no reason for me to move. All my missile choices are either move or fire, so if I do move them, I won't be able to shoot. And since I'm playing a gunline army, it doesn't really make sense to move any of those guys. And plus I'm Dwarves. I mean, there's no really reason for me to move at all, except for I'm waiting for Lady Domina to cross the battlefield to get to me, and that's where I plan on finishing her for that part. So for the most part, nothing really moves. Alright, so with movement phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase, and in this photo you can see that the Doomfire Warlocks are completely gone off the table. The first thing I do is I actually take my Decemberist, my organ gun, and actually take aim with the organ gun and manage to shoot them. I think I managed to hit them 12 times is what I managed to do with my organ gun. So needless to say, I wiped those guys off the face of the planet. So that Doomfire Warlock unit just got vaporized in a hail of gunfire from my organ gun. So chalk up first blood to me. For the rest of the shooting phase, I opened up with Clan Helheim and managed to land 3 wounds onto Rathrek the Moss. So that is pretty impressive considering that this guy is a toughness 5 and I was shooting out with the toughness of a strength 4 weaponry. So I was pretty happy with the result that came out on that one. So I do manage to put 3 wounds on him. He's halfway dead, and so, I take what I can at this point. So that took place in the shooting phase on this right hand side. Meanwhile, on the left hand side, I do fire with the Stars of Eld against one of the bolt throwers from the Storms of Kos. Unfortunately for me though, when I rolled for my balance for my cannonball, it did roll a misfire, so because that just kind of landed right in the mud, which is the best result you can possibly get. I then concentrate fire with my clan Izmir for my crossbowmen, as well as my catapult from the Rememberer, and I managed to plink off, I think 9. Yeah, managed to plink off 9 of these Dark Elves, which is actually pretty impressive. Most of the kills actually came from the Rememberer. I think it killed like 4 with my stone thrower because it deviated over to the left a little bit, but wasn't enough to clip 4 of them, so that part was kind of cool, while the rest of my crossbows finished off the other 5. Unfortunately for me though, Lady Domina does pass her panic check, so these guys don't run away, and nothing much comes from it. And since everyone is engaged in close combat, we skip the combat phase, and we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Dark Elves. So at the top of turn number 2, we go to Lady Domina, and the first thing she does is she starts declaring charges. The first unit she actually declares a charge with is Virzil the Broken. Unfortunately for him though, he didn't run very far. I think he only ran forward about 4 inches. I did stand and shoot as a reaction with Clan Helheim, managed to put a wound on him as well. She then charged him with Beast Lord Karth, who did make his charge roll. I did stand and shoot against him, causing 2 wounds onto him, so that part was pretty epic as well. She then also charges with Rathrek the Maw, who makes it directly into my Dwarf Warriors, so so I'm kind of interested to see exactly how that goes, because I always want interested to see how my Dwarf Warriors do against monsters. She also does try to charge in with her... No, sorry, I'm sorry. That's all of her charges. I apologize. What she does then is she marches the Seastone Skyros forward again, so that way they're right between the tower as well as the woods on the left-hand side, so that way she can charge forward, and she moves up her Morning Dawn about 5 inches forward as well, so that way she can get some good shots in as well. And that pretty much makes up her move phase for this one. Here's a close-up of Beast Lord Rakarth as well as Wrathric the Maw successfully charging directly into my warriors as well as my handgunners, and I'm really worried about my Dwarf Thunderers because they are fighting a monster with a character on top, and that thing is a blender against light infantry, and so I'm really, anxious to see exactly how that battle goes. Here's also a close-up of the Seastone Sorrows as well as the Morning Dawn slowly advancing across the battlefield towards my main battle lines. And finally, here's a close-up of Virzil the Broken, who suffered a wound charging towards my handgunners and getting shot to pieces with just one wound. And so with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And during the magic phase, she managed to get a spell off. Lady Dominant originally tried to open up with Doom Bolt from her sorceress, but I was able to stop that spell. And I realized the reason why is because she was pulling Dispel dice, which she was actually trying to do. I stopped that spell, managed to get that one off. She tried to do Strength of Darkness as well. I managed to stop that spell from going off because having Strength for Dark Elves is not good for me at all. But by doing that, I actually drew out a lot of my Dispel dice, because then she pulled her trump card and she decided to cast a Shroud of Despair, in which case she rolled a pretty high roll on that one. I forgot how high it was. Unfortunately for me, I was unable to dispel it. So because of that, everything within 12 inches of that spell being cast from her Supreme Sorceress, nobody, which is pretty much my entire army because everyone is so close together, I don't get to use Inspiring Presence rules, and I definitely don't get to use Stand Your Ground rules, which is going to be pretty bad for me because my units are engaged in close combat. So that was a well executed round of magic for Lady Dauna, managing to break me psychologically, which is pretty rough. And during the shooting phase, she concentrate fire with the Morning Dawn, as well as her 2 bolt throwers from the Storms of Kos, and they open up on Clan Izmir and managed to drop that unit down to about 3 guys left. I do believe she tries to shoot at the catapult, I remember, with one of her Storms of Kos as well. Wasn't able to hit as well, so that part was kind of rough. But the multiple shot from the second Storm of Kos and the, I think it was 20 shots from the crossbowman was enough to really cause a lot of damage to this guy. So needless to say, I'm down below a quarter of my value, which means I have to roll Snake Eyes. And since I don't have Inspiring Presence or Stand Your Ground rules, as you can probably imagine, I fail my break test and my crossbowmen go running for the hills. And that's actually the first time I actually lost a unit since using this dwarf army, so that part was pretty depressing for me, and really good for Lady Dominant because now my left-hand flank is completely wide open. So during the combat phase, as you can see in this photo, it was absolutely a one-sided victory for Beast Lord Rakarth. He did not issue a challenge to the general because I think he was more concerned about chewing up my unit and making it break than he was about killing my character. So because of that, he cuts loose with the Manticore as well as his general. I think he killed an ungodly number of my troops. Let's see here, 8, 11, 12, 13, yeah, 14. After it was all said and done, he killed 14 of my handgunners through a combination of close combat attacks from his general, from those Manticore, as well as stomps. It was absolutely brutal to see that actually happen. I do counterattack with my remaining handgunners as well as with Grim Borlaxen, and luckily for me, Grim Borlaxen did target against the general, and with his weapon snapper, I managed to break the Chill Blade, which is actually kind of cool. So because of that, the Chill Blade can no longer be used for the rest of the battle report. And I also managed to put 2 wounds onto his Manticore as well, which is actually pretty cool. I got off the, no, I'm sorry, I didn't put any 2 wounds on him. Those 2 wounds were carried over from when he actually charged and I shot at him. So, needless to say, well, the worst part was that, actually you can see from this photo, I lost most of my guys, and there's no way I'm going to be able to make my break test on this one because I just lost too many fighters. So my unit breaks and also flees off the edge of the table. Grimlock Borlaxen fails his leadership test, and since I can't re-roll it because I don't get to use my Stand Your Ground rules, my unit I think ran 10 inches when it did. So because of that, Grim Borlaxen as well as Clan Hellhind completely runs off the table. My opponent, Lady Dominant, does test to restrain, and she successfully passes, and so because of that, Beast Lord Rakarth then turns in order to face my main battle lines, and that's just all kinds of bad for me because now my flanking units are gone and my flanks are now completely exposed to attack. However, there is a silver lining. During the combat phase, I do manage to chop down Rathric the Maw, so that part was kind of cool. Unfortunately for me though, because I'm a dwarf and dwarves have, really low initiative scores, I didn't get to go first. Rathric the Maw actually got to go first. And as you can see in this photo, he killed 6 of my dwarf warriors, which in my opinion, I got off pretty lucky on, because a lot of his attacks just weren't hitting. Even though Rathric the Maw has a high strength value, his weapon skill is atrocious. So because of that, he didn't really do much damage of anything. And I think he rolled a 4 for his stomps. And to be perfectly honest, I think that's what actually killed most of my guys, was actually his Thunderstep that he did. I then counterattacked with both Yorick Shatter Shield as well as with Ivar Bodison, as well as my Runesmith Ragnar the Spellbreaker, and between their attacks, just from those characters alone, was enough to put the final wound onto Rathric the Maw, and so because of that, that beast is now dead. However, I do have some problems though, because my flanking units are completely gone, and the only thing I have left are my Dwarf Warriors as well as my War Machines. So that pretty much makes up turn number 2 for the Dark Elves. And so I basically go for Rook at this point. In turn number 2 for the Dwarves, I decide to take the offense, because there's no way I can stand defensively. I have nothing protecting my flanks. All my shooters are gone. So the only way I can actually win this is hopefully a couple of things. Hopefully my War Machines can finish off his monsters, and then I can finish off his infantry forces using my Dwarf Warriors. So the first thing I do is I declare a charge of Clan Roadstalker. My friend decides to stand his ground and to accept the charge. So because of that, Clan Roadstalker as well as the Seastone Stars crash into each other for a pretty tremendous set of close combat, because you have 2 horde units of Spearmen, Dark Elves against Dwarf Warriors, and it's kind of cool to see exactly how that fight will come out. For the rest of my army, they say exactly where they are, because the only thing I have left is my War Machines. So here's a close-up of the movement phase with my Dwarf Warriors charging directly into the Seastone Sorrows, and I'm pretty excited to see exactly how that combat goes. And during the magic phase, I use the Master Rune of Ayala in order to dispel Shroud of Despair, because it's a remaining play spell, so I managed to get rid of that one, so that way I can still use my Inspiring Presence as well as my Stand My Ground rules. So during the shooting phase, I open up with my Organ Gun onto Beast Lord Rakarth, and because he's a lord mounted on a monster, we roll off to see exactly where the hits go. Of the, I think, 13 or 14 shots I managed to get off with that gun, over 2/3 of it actually ends up into Beast Lord Rakarth. So because of that, he gets killed right off the bat, so that part was kind of cool. So Rakarth of Karan Kar, he is now dead. So because of that, my opponent has to roll up on the monster reaction table, and he rolls a 1. So because of that, he got the rule, which means that his Manticore is now subject to stupidity, which is absolutely great, because that's exactly what I need for it to happen. I then take aim with my cannon, the Sorrows of Eld, and manage to hit Virzil the Broken, and because the flaming shot takes away his regen ability, which is actually absolutely beautiful, and when I rolled to see exactly how many wounds I actually caused on him, I caused 6 wounds. So because of that, Virzil the Broken gets plastered off the table, getting blown apart in half by a cannon, so that part was kind of nice as well. And finally, my Remember opened up onto the Morning Dawn, and luckily for me, I did manage to get a direct hit on this one, but I was only able to kill 3 of the Dark Shards, because there's not many of them left over, so the 3 I managed to hit was the ones that were directly under the table, so that part was kind of cool as well. They do pass their panic checks, so they don't go anywhere, so I still have to worry about those guys, but since everything is pretty much engaged in close combat, I really don't have to worry about them shooting at me at this point. And in the combat phase was horrific for my friend Lady Domina. The first thing I do is I issue a challenge with my general, and the reason why I do that is because I want to take out her Battle Standard Bearer, because that guy has the crown of command. My plan is if I can kill that guy in single combat, then this unit loses its stubborn ability, and then my Dwarf Warriors can just go hammer time with their weapons directly against these Dark Dread Spears. So her master does fight against my lord. He was unable to cause any wounds against my lord because he is built for tough, and my lord on the other hand was able to smash this guy back to his basic elements. So because of that, Captain Lodi Daechir gets killed and their Battle Standard Bearer gets lost in the melee. For the rest of the combat, it was just between my Dwarf Warriors as well as her Dark Elves, and as you can see in this photo, I only managed to lose 1 warrior because she's strength 3 against toughness 4 dwarves who have heavy armor and shield. I also get really good bonuses for my because of that. So because of that, I only lose 1 dwarf at the exchange. Meanwhile, because of my Relentless special ability where I get to use a +1 strength in the first round of combat, I managed to chop down this unit. I believe I kill 13 Dread Spears when it's all said and done, including the Battle Standard Bearer. So needless to say, I automatically win this combat. She needs to take a break test. Needless to say, she fled and I charged forward. She ran back 10 inches through her Morning Dawn, who do manage to pass their panic check, and I do roll to pursue. I roll a 7. So because of that, I try to chase down the Dark Shards of those Seastone Sorrows. I missed them, but I ran directly into the Morning Dawn, and so I'm looking forward to chopping up those Dark Elves and just getting them killed off. And at the same time, I still have to wait for the Dark Elves to rally, and hopefully I can finish those guys off as well. And that pretty much makes up the turn for the Dwarves. So we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Dark Elves, and as you can see in this photo is taken after the movement phase. Not much really happened in this phase. First of all, when she rolls to see exactly for the leadership test for her Manticore only has a leadership of 5, so because of that, he fails his leadership test, and all he does is he moves directly forward. I think 3 inches is what he does. He just kind of stumbles forward a bit because the Manticore is suffering from stupidity rules. At the end of the turn, though, she does manage to rally her Dread Spears, so because of that, the Seastone Stars do a 180 and get ready to prepare to receive the charge, because Lady Domina knows I'm going to go blast right through those Dark Shards and then charge directly into her forces. Here's a close-up of the move phase between the infantry forces. As you can see, I'm engaged right now with the Morning Dawn, and I'm planning on destroying those guys because 9 crossbowmen are not enough to stop a huge horde of dwarf warriors. And as you can see, the Seastone Sorrows do make a full recovery for their panic check, so they do a 180 and they get ready to stand their ground to receive the charge that's basically coming their way. And unfortunately, I forgot to take the photo for the rest of the turn after the move phase. I do apologize for that. I was just too excited with my playing and I forgot to take the photo of it. But needless to say, not really much happens at all for the rest of her phases for the most part. For the magic phase, she rolled, I think, 3 power dice, which she ended up getting. She actually, I think, sacrificed one of her Dark Elves or one of her Dread Spears in order to generate more power dice. I believe she only got 1 more power die out of it. So because of that, she took all 4 dice and tried to cast Power of Darkness into her unit, but I managed to dispel it with the Master Rune of Yala as well, helping me out. So because of that, her magic phase doesn't really go anywhere. For her shooting phase, because her Morning Dawn's engaged in close combat, they can't shoot, but she decides to shoot again with her bolt throwers. Unfortunately for her, though, she was unable to hit any of my war machines, so because of that, it was pretty much a waste. At the same time, in the combat phase, needless to say, my Dwarf Warriors just chop right through the Morning Dawn. I blast right past that unit, overrun directly into the Seastone Sorrows. And that pretty much makes it the turn. And I do apologize for not taking those photos in advance. So that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Dwarves, and as you can see in this field, like I said before, I charged directly into the Dark Elves because I went right through those Morning Dawn like it's nobody's business. They do manage to, I think, kill... Wait, I think they do manage to kill a couple of my Dwarf Warriors. I do apologize. I think they killed like 1 or 2 is what they end up doing in that part. But anyways, regardless to say that, my Dwarves engage directly into her combat, and the rest of my war machines stay exactly where they're at because there's no purpose for them to move. Here's a close-up of the Seastone Sorrows as well as Clan Roadsucker getting ready to throw it down in the combat phase. And I'm really excited to see exactly how this combat turns out for the next phase here in a second. And in the shooting phase, I do manage to take out the Manticore. I take aim with my organ gun, open up with I think 10 shots is what I managed to get on this one, and I managed to shoot that Manticore right off the table. So that part was pretty awesome, and I'm really glad because that Manticore could cause all kinds of problems if he manages to pass his leadership test. So chalk 1 up for the crewman. At the same time, I concentrate fire with my Rememberer as well as the Sorrows of Eld. The Grudge Thrower manages to go way off. I think I rolled like a 6 for the scatter, so it completely goes off target. Wasn't able to hit anything. However, the Sorrows of Eld was able to blast one of the Storms of Kos off the table, so because that, Lady Domina is down 1 Bolt Thrower. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And as you can see in this photo, it was an absolute slaughter for the Dark Elves. They do manage to kill 3 of my Dwarf Warriors, which is kind of sad. However, I managed to kill an ungodly amount of these Dark Elves. Let me see here. I got 5, 10, 15, yeah, 16. I managed to kill 16 Dark Elves by the time it was all said and done in the combat phase. It was absolutely brutal for my opponent, just watching a lot of those Dark Elves get chopped to pieces for the most part. So, needless to say, with all the losses that Lady Domina took, she did have to take a break test. She failed her break test and I pursued. She rolled a 6 for her fleet. I rolled a 7, so because I go right through them, chopping down those Seastone Sorrows and landing right next to the forest as well, leaving the only thing left on the battlefield 1 single Bolt Thrower. And at this point, that Lady Domina pretty much calls the game because there's no way she can win, and that nets a victory for the Dwarves on this one. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king.
Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 42, and ended up being a victory for yours truly. In the end, let's talk about our losses real quick. I lost Grim Borluxon as well as Clan Izmir, as well as Clan Helheim. Lady Domina, on the other hand, she lost Beast Lord Rakarth of Karand Kar, Kalibos the Manticore, Captain Lodi Daechir, the Sea Stone Skyros, the Morning Dawn, Virzil the Broken, one of the Storms of Kos, Rathric the Maw, as well as the Shacklemore Seers. And just to be honest with you guys, this game was incredibly close, just to be honest with you guys. My problem with this one, I almost lost this battle report. And the reason why is because of bad deployment choices. Normally I go with a denied flank deployment. This time I did not do that because I wanted to line of sight with my war machines. And that was a huge problem because, as you can see in this battle report, Lady Domina shows the weakness of a Dwarf gunline build, and that weakness is maneuverability. So long as you can surround the Dwarf army and outmaneuver them by attacking the flanks, the Dwarves can not really do much of anything to stop that from happening. And Lady Domina did exactly what she was supposed to. She attacked my flanks, she destroyed my shooting units very, very quickly, and she had her forces cross the battlefield as quick as they possibly can in order to engage me into close combat. So because of that, she did a beautiful job doing that. Personally, the only reason why I actually won this battle report is because of one thing, and that was because of Virzil the Broken. I do believe this, if Virzil the Broken did not fail his charge roll, if he actually managed to successfully charge directly into my flank against my Clan Helheim, this battle report would have been totally different. And the reason why that's the case is because if the War Hydra did engage in Clan Helheim, my Thunderers, he could have destroyed that unit pretty quickly alongside with Beast Lord Rakarth. What that would have done is that would have forced my hand on my war machines, because then my war machines wouldn't be able to concentrate fire onto Beast Lord Rakarth. It'd have to choose either the War Hydra or the Manticore, in which case one of them would have probably been shot off the table from the war machines, probably Virzil the Broken in this case, but Beast Lord Rakarth would then be able to engage my war machines, and then once he was able to do that, my war machines would have been stuck. Not to mention, if he also charged in the flank with my Dwarf warriors who were engaged with Rathric the Maw, my warriors would have been stuck as well. I wouldn't have been able to take the offensive, and Lady Domina could have picked me apart bit by bit with that one. And like I said, the only reason why I won it was because of sheer luck, because Virzil the Broken failed his roll. But, you know, at this point, I'll take whatever I can get at this point. I still love the way that this Dwarf army plays. I love it, especially how it looks. I think I did a really good paint job on this army. It's actually one of my best, if I, not to sound big-headed, but I'm really proud of it. And so I love the way this Dwarf army is playing. I'm having a lot of fun playing it as well. This was an extremely fun game against an awesome opponent, and I'm also looking forward to the rematch. As always, you guys, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe, because your input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Google+, Blogger.com, as well as Instagram for all the latest and greatest news about our channel's hobby news. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.